It is what it is when you see it like that. And what that was a dominant signature win for the Cowboys and Jason Garrett on Thursday Night Football, and the most watched Thursday Night Football game to boot. And to join us right here to discuss it from the Dallas Morning News is lead columnist Tim Cowlishaw. How are you there, Tim?
I'm doing fine. The folks in Dallas would prefer if you didn't mention the out-coached part. They struggle with that.
But, I mean, am I wrong, though, Tim, on that front?
No, you're not. And I'm kidding about that.
I know that.
But it's, there's still people saying, that don't think Garrett had anything to do with it. Well, of course he had everything to do with it. The idea of what you want from a coach is your team plays its tail off and they play to or beyond expectations. And that's exactly what the Cowboys did last night. They also didn't waste all their challenges in the first half.
That's right. I mean, and also let your players be who they are. And it seems like, I mentioned Van Der Esch and I mentioned Jalen Smith, and we have Byron Jones on in hour number 3. But DeMarcus Lawrence, I mean, they are following him as well. And in this day and age, you need team speed on offense. You need a young quarterback, perhaps on his first contract, so you can pay all the other positions. And you need a pass rush. And let's start with the pass rush. This is, I know Bears fans don't want to hear it either. This could be the front seven of the NFL right now, Tim.
I mean, because even when Breeze wasn't, they didn't sack him a lot. They sacked him twice, but they caused fumbles. They were in his face. He threw incompletions early. They forced him to punt with their pass rush. And you're right, it does obviously start with DeMarcus Lawrence, who was really good last year, borderline great last year, and has been terrific this year. And although he tried to kind of back down from that challenge, saying what he said was taken out of context, he did, whatever the case, he challenged his team, everybody else, and they followed him right down the line.
They certainly did. Has there ever been, in your estimation, Tim, a Cowboys team whose identity was on defense?
Well, the original, I mean, the great Cowboy teams of the 60s, Bob Lilly, Leroy Jordan, Chuck Howley, Mel Renfro, even though they had Meredith and Bob Hayes, Doomsday was kind of what got it all started. And in 77, I guess, first defensive Super Bowl MVPs, Harvey Martin and Randy White shared it. So, I mean, although they had Staubach and they had Dorsett by then. So they've always had a little of both. But since then, it's been offense. And obviously when they won in the 90s, even though the defense was really good, it was all about the triplets. So this is not only a change for the league, but a change for this franchise for about the past 30 or 40 years.
Tim Cowlishaw here on the Rich Eisen Show. So I mean, it's not a very in-depth question, but how about that Van Der Esch? I mean, is there more than one than him on the field?
The tackles he makes, and somebody, I can't remember which announcer said it a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't really thought about it, but he said, if you play 8-man football, all you do is open field tackles. You're never in a crowd, so you better be able to tackle one-on-one. And I hadn't really thought about that, but he makes all the plays. And last night it seemed like he and Jalen Smith were, trading tackles and trading highlights. So that's something they also haven't had, even though they've had Sean Lee in and out. I mean, this guy's been unbelievable.
I don't want to do the knee-jerk thing, and this can sound like that, but I honestly, that was a stunning, breathtaking, lapel-snapping, attention-grabbing performance last night on all sides of the ball, Tim. And, so the question is how portable is this? How repeatable is something like this in your estimation?
Yeah, I mean, and that is the key question. Are they going to, in 10 days, going to go down and, come back and lose to the Eagles here? I mean, I guess anything's possible. But for me, I just thought, well, you said it's, across the board. They scored 13 points. So the offense didn't score in the second half. So they probably could use some work there. And Dak fumbling when he did could have been really costly if Breeze doesn't throw the interception. Beyond that, the way their schedule looks, I mean, they ought to go 10-6. I mean, they ought to win the East. It's hard to think that they won't at this point. And then you got to figure out, okay, they beat the Saints at home, but if they play them in the playoffs, Saints or the Rams in round 2, that's on the road. Can they do that? And I don't know if we're there yet with this team.
Well, but I gotta hand it in a way here, Tim, because the narrative is Garrett, all he does is clap, and Jerry Jones, all he does is get in the way. And in terms of the latter, I thought they overpaid for Amari Cooper. I think everybody thought they overpaid for him, but he has been a terrific, crucial addition. And there's no way I think they win that game last night if Jerry Jones didn't use the second round supposedly overreached pick on the injured Jalen Smith, or went ahead and drafted Leighton Vander Esch instead of Calvin Ridley like everybody thought he should have. They lose that game last night, Tim. You know?
Yeah, I mean, last night was a textbook or a showcase for Jerry Jones and how this team is drafted, and all the things they have been second guessed. I thought the Amari Cooper thing, when other people are getting Thomas and Tate for third and fourth round picks, I thought you're giving up a first round pick for a guy who hadn't really done much in a year and a half for Oakland. But he's been the perfect addition. Vander Esch way beyond anybody's thoughts. Although, I mean, the first time you saw him in Oxnard, you think this guy looks like Brian Urlacher. He's huge. Look at him. Look the way he runs. But you don't know how that's going to go as a rookie. But man, right now they're hitting on all those things. Now, clearly they're 7-5 for a reason, and it took a while for this to come together. And as you said, you don't know when it's going to come apart. I think there's questions about the quarterback. I think there's legitimate questions still to be had on this team, but they didn't show up last night.
Are your questions about the quarterback in terms of Dak's viability to win this year, or the impending decision to give him that big fat second contract and go all in?
Just the second one. I mean, and you know, it seems unfair in a way to, on a night a guy's 24 for 28, to look at that throw to a wide open Gallup and say how many NFL quarterbacks would make that throw. It seems like a lot of them would. Now, some of them would miss. It's not like they never miss, but that was a pretty wide open chance there. And then the fumble on the third down. You got to have a little presence there. You can't have a fumbling issue, and he's had a fumbling. That's his fifth or sixth lost fumble this year. So, you know, but he's found ways to win, and he runs when he needs to. I don't know. He's answering most of those questions, but I think a few are still hanging out there.
So none of this credit of something like last night locally, Tim, is going to go towards Jason Garrett, you don't think?
I'm going to try to give a little, which is going to be hard for me. I've written more than twice that he should have been gone at the end of last year. But, I mean, really, I think anytime you're talking about coaches, unless you're talking about Bill Belichick and a couple others, this whole thing is very subjective. It's what we have. It's just our perception of what we think they're bringing to the team. But like I said, all you want is a team that looks prepared and playing to 100% and playing with enthusiasm and playing to their expectations or beyond. And they blew all those away last night. So that's got to have, if that doesn't have something to do with the head coach, I don't know where it comes from.
Well, and I guess as also not just the Dallas Morning News, but a member of the worldwide leaders around the horn, do you think if the Cowboys do eventually win it all, Tim, that as my compadre on the air here, Chris Brockman, suggested on Twitter, that Stephen A. Smith should get a championship ring, Tim?
Well, I mean, I saw him this morning, saw him a little tongue-tied, which is unusual, as you probably know. Mm-hmm. But you might be getting ahead of yourself.
You think? I mean,
Super Bowl. I'll just say I've been a columnist for 21 years, and they've won 2 playoff games in that time. So it's hard to think in terms of Super Bowls.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, I mean, he shows up in a Breeze jersey, you know, in a black hat, you know, and he starts arguing with Dion.
He's had a big impact.
I think. Ask the poll question of Tim before we send him down the road in the Metroplex. Chris.
Yeah, Tim, after last night's result, who is your Super Bowl favorite? Chiefs, Rams, Saints, or the field?
Chiefs, Rams, Saints, or the field. I picked the Rams Chargers Super Bowl in the summer, and I'm the All LA Super Bowl, and I'm hanging with that. So from your group, I'm going to stick with the Rams, but the field might be creeping up a little bit.
Well, who's the field, do you think?
Well, obviously the Patriots are in the field, right?
They are in the field. They're out there in the field. They're in the
got
field.
Josh Gordon, they got Gronk, they got Sony Michel, they got some players. They got a little history. I don't really like the Steelers at the moment. Houston's coming forward. The Bears, it's tough. It's tough.
Then there's the Cowboys, Tim.
They're creeping up.
Then there's the Cowboys. There's the Dallas Cowboys.
And the Cowboys lurking somewhere.
My phone lines are lit, Tim. I mean, they're lit.
I bet they are.
Cowboys fan, and then who's the largest audience ever seen a Thursday night football game?
God,
that happened.
They do that when they're 4-7.
Tim, thanks.
Yeah, it is staggering.
Appreciate.
There were a lot of Saints fans there last night. They had to be pretty quiet.
There were. Tim, thanks for the call. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
You got at Tim Cowlishaw on Twitter.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.